But we'll go ahead and we're going to pull up the answers. And some of these, you might think that they might be debatable, but actually this piece did come from one of the Wiggins and McTighe books. And so this is where they have all been placed. And I think Bob is...
It's on the presentation. They'll have to look there because we're having problems.
Okay, slide number 16, refresh, because we did cover it up and now we put it back up again. It looks like we're having a few more technical difficulties trying to get back with our computer. So go ahead and pull up slide number 16 and tell me what, and then go ahead and compare your answers. So look at your board or your sheet. Look at what the answers are. What would you change, or what would you, where did you maybe miss the mark on that? Slide number 16. Okay. Music, pause. There we go. All right, what were some of those phrases or words that maybe threw you off a little bit?
Tangible.
And where did you guys put it?
I think we put it under big ideas, but we were trying to think of examples.
Yeah. So you try to think of examples of tangible.
That would fit in there correctly.
Explain. So they have a question.
What is an example of a tangible object that is a big idea?
The statement that can include tangible objects or other abstract ideas like democracy and bravery.
Because all of a sudden I have outcomes with skills next to it, and I'm like, wait a minute, but outcomes, because in my head, I think skills are knowledge and understand. For whatever reason, I equate skill with lower level on Bloom's. So having the word skills next to outcomes just threw me for a loop. So once we started talking more about this, we realized that ultimately what we're trying to do is clarify Wiggins, McTighe stuff versus what we're doing here in Douglas County and how those things are similar and different. So once I kind of made that connection in my head, it made a little bit more sense to me that for us, we don't really label our outcomes with any sort of skill label, but they do because they think bigger, broader skills. But in my head, when I think skill, I think knowledge and understanding. But their definition, Wiggins and McTighe's definition of skills, are bigger and broader, what we see as those world-class outcomes. So it's really trying to do a little bit of that compare and contrast or align what Douglas County's version of backward planning is against what UBD does. Yeah.
Can you just explain why we're shifting from understanding by design?
We are going to explain that. If I can ask you to hold that question for like 10 minutes, I think we're going to do a clear explanation of that. Yes.
Absolutely. So we're going to shift hats, and if I could get writers back at the boards or that's you. We're going to shift hats, and I want to ask the question, with this activity, why would I give you an example? Because the question came up at that front table. Why would we put an example of what we wouldn't put? Because we talked about not putting knowledge in stage 1. Deconstruct. Thank you, Kim. Knowledge does not belong in stage 1 of backwards planning. Knowledge really belongs in that stage 3. Why would we have you look at not only that knowledge, but all the other pieces that do belong in stage 1? Why would we look at both? Why would you want your participants to look at both pieces? So why would you want, when you do a sort or you did an activity like this, why would you want to have a non-example and an example?
It forces you into evaluating. It forces you into higher level thinking.
So it forces you to evaluate both parts of it, and it forces you to that higher level thinking? Absolutely. What else?
In vocabulary and reading instruction, we use that Freyer model.
And so to know what a word is, you have to know what it isn't. So it's kind of that same applicable piece.
Absolutely. You want to know what it is and you want to know what it isn't. That Frayer model.
And don't you think part of it is that, we were talking about if we're doing is and isn't, should we have the other components like stage 2 stuff thrown in there and stuff also? But I think you all were focusing more on what are the common things that we see ending up in stage 1 incorrectly.
Absolutely. Thanks, Liz, for clarifying that. We do oftentimes see a lot of knowledge put in stage 1. And you will see that when teachers start creating backwards planned units. And so that's a way for you to coach and for you to look at that and be able to identify that quickly. So what doesn't belong in stage 1? Anything else that anyone else wants to add? Tiffany, are you going to talk about a little bit what the big ideas with our backwards plan, and is that one of your slides in a little bit or no?
No, I think we did that a little bit already.
Okay.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay. Also, just another piece with those big ideas. On our GVC documents, the big ideas are going to live there. You're not going to see this in the backwards plan so much anymore. The big ideas are going to live through the interim assessment department, and those will be on the GVC documents. So teachers aren't going to have to do so much with big ideas for stage 1 when they start planning their units. Okay, big ideas. Okay, anything else that you want to add with that? Yes.
Would you mind explaining again the difference between knowledge and outcomes? I think that's a hard one to explain, and I don't have a clear grasp of it yet.
Can I give an example of how backward planning has changed what I previously would have written as an outcome? So, high school Spanish teacher, and forever and quite wrongly, frankly, world language teachers have focused on grammar as a major point, like not on communication so much. So, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, we all did those groups, committees in the district where we came up with some people called them key learnings, some people called them essential learnings. For all courses, right, we had these essential learnings. So we came back and our essential learnings, which were essentially our outcomes for Spanish 2, for example, said something like, students will be able to properly conjugate an AR verb in the past tense, right? That was an example of an outcome or a key learning. Well, that's very low level. That's kind of knowledge and understanding based. Those kind of outcomes should no longer be in stage 1. Sure, my kids are still going to have to know how to do that if they want to communicate effectively, but it's a smaller piece that happens in the learning activity progression in stage 3, right? So my outcome is now more focused on students can communicate effectively in a travel situation. Students can communicate effectively in a shopping situation, right? I'm wording these poorly right now because they're flying off the top of my head. But it's just a bigger, broader picture of a higher level skill that's not focused on a discrete little piece of content any longer. So I think that's the thing with knowledge now is that kids still need to have that scaffolding, right? I don't think we can say that you can't do the bigger stuff without building the things in stage 3, but it's no longer part of what we used to consider to be our learning targets or outcomes.
So then, Tiffany, I'm going to ask you, do all kids need that exact same scaffolding?
No, I think that there's definite, and we'll talk when we get to the stage 3 part. I don't want to steal stage 3's thunder, but you have definitely like on and off ramps for kids who need the differentiation. Sorry, Liz. But yeah, I think that's the key part in the art of teaching is how do we construct the differentiation within our learning activities in stage 3 to be appropriate for all kids.
To use 7 Habits language, it's kind of like your big rocks. Because I found for me, same background in teaching, I always wanted them to get to that where they could go and talk to a real native speaker about their childhood or about whatever, or ask questions, be able to answer them, that type of thing. But because I hadn't made it a big rock, I ended up budgeting most of my time toward the little minutia. So if my kids left and they could conjugate verbs, great, but how many native speakers are going to run up to you and say, quick, AR verb, go, go, go. You know, nobody's going to do that. And so I hadn't budgeted my time well because I put too much knowledge there and I forgot the big rocks. I mean, I knew them, and some of my kids got them, a lot of them got them, but it was more by accident than design, honestly. So I think, does that give you that?
Okay, you said students communicate in a travel situation. That would be an outcome. So thinking of your language, what would be the big idea and what would be the understanding? I just need to have all three analogies all connected.
So big idea would be travel, I would say, right? Because you have all sorts of vocabulary, different kind of grammar structures that would fit in under that. And enduring
or communication.
Or communication. Enduring understanding, let me grab a few here. I'm actually working on a unit in Spanish, so I have a content one that I can share with people.
We could even use the one enduring understanding of, we love this one, parts impact whole.
Or I really like the thinking about how culture impacts beliefs.
Yeah.
So thinking about those travel situations and where you're going to go, that's ultimately a bigger enduring understanding, is that different places and different people have different belief systems, right? So parts impact whole would be a good one. Understanding cultivates connections. That's another enduring understanding that works really well for foreign language.
And so you guys, in just a few moments, well, not just a few, but in a little bit, are going to start creating stage one for yourselves in your small groups. So you'll get practice with making sure that you're aligning all of these pieces together. An enduring understanding, 2 essential questions, 2 big ideas, 2 outcomes. So you'll get the opportunity to practice with this also. Okay. Is it? Thank you. All right. So understanding is also a big piece. We always think about understanding as that a little bit lower level on Bloom's. However, when you really are thinking about understanding and the way that we're looking at it with those enduring understandings, we want to look at it, and this slide did not come in like it was supposed to. So we're just going to go ahead with the first one and just do it all at once. All right. So there is a lot of research behind understanding. And what we are looking at is that the 40-year understanding. If it's worth spending 40 minutes in your class on it, it's worth spending 40 minutes again and again and again. The more often students are exposed to content and to understanding and to thinking, the more likely they will remember it. If it's not worth spending 40 minutes the first time, it's not worth spending 40 minutes. Worth being familiar with, that's that 4-minute piece that we want students, but that's what they're going to remember from that. You want them to be familiar with it, but it doesn't last a long time. Important to know and do, that lasts that 4 years piece. You have to know it and be able to do it, and that's that scaffolding piece in order to build on more and more and more. And then what we really want students to know and be able to do, those big ideas and enduring understandings, that's that 40-year piece. What's worth remembering 40 years from now? How do we get them to that 40-year from now place? It's not spending it in all the time in that just worth being familiar with. It's really taking those enduring understandings and those essential questions and going really deep with it. If we spend it on the minutia, on the knowledge, we never get to that big idea and those enduring understandings. We also want to be able to have them transfer it. If it's an enduring understanding in language arts, it's an enduring understanding in math and science and health and PE. We want them to be able to think about it in very many different contexts. That makes it enduring, that makes it lasting. Is this not working? Okay, so what is understanding? This video will give you a little bit of a lens on Wiggins and from Grant Wiggins. And while you watch this video, pay attention to what he's talking about with understanding, and then you're going to have a table, not necessarily a table talk, but a get up and table talk with other people from the room. So, Bob, if you'd press that.
Understanding by design. Well, what is understanding? I taught for many years at Loomis Chaffee, you know, like many of you, good prep school, had a lot of good students, and I was really puzzled by students who were smart, dutiful, showing up for class, clueless. It really puzzled me as a phenomenon. It also became clear to me, by design, I was not a good planner. I knew the kind of provocation that I wanted to engage people in. I could plan a lesson, but I had a sense that you could do a better job than this. And really, where I discovered it in a weird kind of parallel universe way, I became a much better planner and teacher on the soccer field than I did in my English class and my philosophy class. Because I was still wedded to the conception of pretty egocentric conception that what we're going to cover and what I want you to understand is central. Even though I was doing Socratic seminar, even though I'd gone to St. John's, where you do seminar, 4 years standing. But it was obvious on the soccer field, you're on the sideline, man. There's nothing you can do. And soccer is one of those great sports. Very fluid, lots of executive decision making, and one of the few sports where you can't call timeout as a coach. You're stuck with what they do. And so there you really see the movement back and forth. We learn some things, we do a little scrimmage, we go to the game, yikes. Back to the drills. True story. When I left Loomis, I was coaching girls varsity soccer, and my co-captain, Liz, was a constant offender. All the things that we'd worked on in drills, she would just run around and be a ball hog and keep doing the same old things. And one day, I tend to be reasonably quiet as a coach. I'll talk to myself, and people will hear me mumbling, but I don't yell at people much. But I was frustrated, and I said, Liz, all the things we've been working on! God's honest truth. She yells back in the middle of the game, freezing everybody on the field. It was like those old E.F. Hutton commercials. We would, Mr. Wiggins, but the other team isn't lining up the way we did the drills. Epiphany. Epiphany. The best way to understand backward design from your goals is through that story. You can teach, you can do exercises, you can do worksheets, you can do assessments, and you think they got it. They don't get it until they try to transfer it in the game. So, by design, we want to plan backward from our goals. And one of our chief goals is something called understanding. But the word that I want you to think about today is transfer. Can the student transfer their learning? Because after all, the point of school is not to get good at school. The point of school is to use what you've learned in school somewhere else. To say it a slightly different way, which is truly troublemaking, the goal is not to see if they learned what you taught. That's not the goal. In fact, that's a trivial goal. That's a mere means. The goal is to see if they can use it when you're gone. In other classes, outside of school, in the future. In other words, it's future directed. It's not what did they learn of what we just covered in the past.
Okay. All right. So I want you to think about one new learning you had from that video. One new learning, and when you hear the music, you're going to find somebody you haven't talked to yet, and you're going to share that new learning. One new learning, find somebody new, and share that new learning. Music. Okay. I'm going to have you wrap up that little conversation, and when you hear the music, you're going to find a new person. And you're going to share with that person one shift you think teachers will need to make with understanding. One shift teachers are going to have to make with understanding. Does that make sense? Go. Music. You're supposed to find somebody new. Somebody new. Okay, the music has stopped. I want you, on your way back to your table, give 3 people high fives and tell them what a wonderful job they're doing today. Music. Back to your tables. High fives to people. Say, awesome job. Okay. Just briefly, I want to hear from 3 people. What one new learning and a shift that for teachers, one learning and a shift. A learning and a shift. You don't have to do both, but one of them would be great. A learning or a shift. And share it out.
Transferability is a shift.
Transferability will be a shift for teachers. Yeah. What else? Remy?
One of the things that I heard a few people talking about is that you may not necessarily need a test in the traditional sense, but you do need to find an authentic assessment for students to show what they know.
Yeah. We talked about authentic assessment not building a poster, and how difficult it is to find an authentic place for kids to apply their learning. That with do you go to the local water treatment plant and have them allow your students to be scientists with the city's water? Don't know.
Ooh, that would be fun. Exactly, that's why I'm on a well too. So a lot of shifts really in not just the what is understanding, but what am I going to do with that understanding? How will I authentically measure that understanding? And that definitely gets into that stage 2, where we'll spend a lot of time with that authentic assessment. But it's a shift in that piece and what you are thinking about when you're asking kids to understand with endurance and to keep that for a long time. How are they going to do it? How are they going to show that? So, how do we create enduring understandings? And I know some people ask the question, why do we do this if we're going to have them anyway on the GVCs? I tell you, the process is absolutely powerful. We have spent so many hours really to understand them when you can start creating them. And it really helps them with that transferability to other content areas and to have that cognitive dissonance, to have your brain really think about enduring understandings. So we have an understanding up here. This is one of my favorite enduring understandings. Openness to ambiguity cultivates creativity. And I like when we think about enduring understandings, if I can flip it around and make it go work the other way, creativity cultivates openness to ambiguity. Then I can flip it and I can think of it in a different way. And for me, if it works both ways, then it's probably a pretty good enduring understanding that might make me think about different things very deeply. I love enduring understandings. They're my favorite. We were working with CTE and health and PE teachers with working on GVCs, and there was one gentleman who came up with a great one. And I think I was like, wah! It's so weird. I'm yellow. Yellow, blue, and red, but yeah, I'm yellow. Yeah. So when you check an enduring understanding, you want to look at that test of 10. And I know that many of you are familiar with the test of 10 already, but I want you to look at that openness to ambiguity cultivates creativity, and I want you to click on the test of 10 in your presentation. And I want you, as a table group, to go through the test of 10 with that particular enduring understanding. Does it fit the test of 10? Okay? So click on the test of 10 and look at that enduring understanding through that lens. Okay. So the test of 10. Which did this enduring understanding not fit into any of those test of 10 prompts? Involves giving meaning to facts, requires uncoverage because it is an abstraction. Were there any that you said, ooh, this doesn't quite fit?
We wondered about number 8.
Number 8, and read number 8.
Put my glasses on.
I need glasses too.
Is usually not well, the statement, but then the description under it. No, wait a minute. Which one is it? Yeah, easily misunderstood was our wondering.
That you don't think this one might be easily misunderstood? It's usually not obvious, often counterintuitive, and can be easily misunderstood. So you don't think that it would fit with that one?
We had a discussion.
Okay.
In general. I mean, I just...
So in general, not necessarily with this particular enduring understanding, but why would it have to be that piece on number 8? That it is usually not obvious? I don't know, that's a good question. Are a lot of the enduring understandings easily misunderstood? Parts impact whole. Could that be misunderstood? I would say it probably could, because it could be interpreted in many, many, many different ways. And you want to be able to, it is different. It is different. You think it might be a little bit better. So you're questioning more the test of 10, that number 8 piece, than you are anything else. The misunderstood piece. And when Dana gets here, we'll ask her to go deeper into that, because I will say I cannot explain that one piece. And Dana is our backwards planning guru here. So I'll have her, write that one down and then make sure that she can explain that when she gets here. Anyone else? Anything else on that, on the test of 10?
Well, I don't really understand how 2 fits it.
Serves as an organizer for connecting important facts, skills, and actions. How might it serve as an organizer for connecting facts, connecting skills, and connecting actions? Does anybody want to attempt to answer that? Tiffany does.
I'm going to throw out just a little bit of a helper thing that I've seen to be very effective. Sedalia, Kathy's here. Their teachers, specifically their primary teachers, what they're doing with their enduring understanding is they're actually rewriting them in kid-friendly language. Because do first graders know what that means? So I think when that happens, sometimes it's a little bit easier in some ways to apply the test of 10 to them when they're written in more kid-friendly language because you see kind of the holes and the twists and those sort of things too. So not necessarily answering the question, but just a side note that I've seen to be kind of effective in helping people really struggle with these. So what does openness to ambiguity cultivates creativity look like in a first grade classroom? Or does that exist in a first grade? I mean, these are all really good conversations that we've been having, but that rewriting of them in kid-friendly language has been a really interesting process to watch.
Yes, Remy.
I also see the organization kind of, this is the big umbrella understanding, and once you start sticking your stage 2 and stage 3, that allows all the connectivity to happen. So I see that later in the stages as kids are connecting the dots, as teachers are connecting instruction and assessment. And so you are having it kind of an organizer. I can almost see a graphic organizer for this is our big umbrella and this is all the things that fit and connect underneath.
So it has to be able to connect skills. It has to be able to connect activities. It has, if you can see that you would be able to put different pieces underneath this and connect it in order to reach this understanding, then it would be an understanding that would work. What could I do to connect different pieces in order to reach this understanding? Robin.
And I think it's important to know too that you select an enduring understanding based on the overall piece or that unit that you're designing. So we're not saying that this enduring understanding would fit with anything that you're trying to do. Right. So you'll see the connecting the pieces when you have selected the enduring understanding or created the enduring understanding that is appropriate for the intended outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And then the next thing that you will do with an enduring understanding is look at that global ladder. Once you say, I've got a pretty decent enduring understanding here, you want to make sure that it moves up. So in Wiggins and McTighe, we took this one exactly out of their book. The adaptation of mathematical models and ideas to human problems requires careful judgment and sensitivity to impact. That's an okay enduring understanding, but it's very content specific. So it would go on the global ladder at that bottom rung. It's not something that is going to really be transferable to other content areas. It's not global enough. So we moved it up to the middle of that global ladder. The adaptation of models and ideas to human problems requires careful judgment and sensitivity to impact. Took out just the math piece. I can use this now in other content areas, but it's still not global enough. It's still a little bit more specific. So we bumped it up again. Adaptation of models and ideas impacts judgment and sensitivity. See how we moved it from that low rung? Not that it's a bad enduring understanding, but if we want it to be transferable, we want to make sure that it is not content specific. I might use that enduring understanding under a very specific unit. I really want to make sure that we're talking about adaptation of mathematical models, but I really want to try to keep it global when I'm thinking of that transferability. All right. And I think Kiffany is going to talk a little bit about getting close to lunch.
Yes. So we are getting close to lunch, you guys. We apologize for not sharing the agenda for the kind of the breakdown of the day up front. Our plan is to have you guys break for lunch at 11:30. We are drastically behind schedule as to where we had hoped we would be. This is a common theme in my teaching. I'm always realizing I have more stuff to tell people than we have time for. So with that kind of understanding and knowing that you guys are a group that's a bit ahead of other groups that we've been talking to, you're ahead of the curve. You guys have been doing this with your staff in your buildings. We're actually, if you're in the presentation, we're going to skip over this vetting activity. So that would be slides number 22 through about 28, 27. So basically, in a nutshell, I'm going to tell you what the activity is so that you know what it does, so you can use it with your staff if you'd like. It takes an enduring understanding, and each table has one that's given out to them, and you actually run that one through the test of 10. You connect it to other content areas. We then create essential questions for that enduring understanding, and then we have you pull outcomes from the GVC to align with those things. So it's just another way to have you kind of put all the pieces together, but we're sort of feeling like you guys have a good enough base and understanding of these things that this is something that we can skip over. However, if you're interested in using the idea with your staff, everything is in the slideshow in the presentation that you would need to do that. So take a look at that. You don't have to, we're not going to go through it right now because we really want to get you guys started on this next part before we head you or send you out to lunch. So if we look at slide number 28, I think that's where we're, 27? 27. Oh, I'm going to let you guys explain that why, because that's your deal. So everybody take a look at slide number 27, and I'm going to go ahead and let Christy explain the why behind this part.
So there was a twofold purpose in that vetting activity. The first part was so that you could have experience working, because you're going to work with your teachers on vetting their enduring understandings, their essential questions, and the outcomes. And now that last part was really like, it's where the meat of it is when you guys are going through the existing outcomes from the version 1.0 GVCs, and you're upgrading them to version 2.0. This year, Career Tech Ed and Art and Music, I think, is that who we worked with? Oh, the next one, thank you. They, this year, started with 2.0, where the core curricular areas had done version 1.0 last year. So if you'll notice the additions, I'm sure some of you have seen this, the enduring understandings are at the top. That was not there last year. The big ideas are on the left-hand side. That was not there last year. The outcomes have been upgraded drastically in some areas. That piece, they're all upper level Blooms now, and they have been vetted, or they are in the process of being vetted using the 4 C's, Ed Leader 21 4 C's rubrics. So they're all in the process of being upgraded, and then some of the areas that didn't do it last year, they're starting with this template. Okay, we wanted you to understand what brought us to this point. It was us going through and vetting them ourselves that made us realize we need a new template. So it's not to confuse you, it's to make everything more purposeful. We were very intentional in why we did it.
Okay, guys, so in taking a look at slide number 28 on the presentation, we're actually going to walk around and hand these out to tables so each of you have a copy. We always want to be aware of how we're going to evaluate what it is we're going to ask you to do. So we want you to have a copy of the rubric for stage 1 in front of you, and we're going to shortly release you guys to take a stab at this with small groups. So if you're in a table that has, 7, 8 people in it, you want to divide in half. I would say maximum of 5 people per group to do this. So if you're in a bigger group, you want to kind of divide and conquer your group so there's not so many. So as we start this next activity, use that rubric as a guide to help you vet the quality of the things that you're creating. Okay? We're going to work on a stage 1. Forward the slide a bit. So between now and for the next 10 minutes, 11:30 when we break for lunch, we're going to ask you guys to create a stage 1 with all of the necessary components: enduring understandings, essential questions, big ideas, world-class outcomes, for a non-academic activity of your choice. Okay, why non-academic? Why would we want you guys doing this outside of a content area? Any ideas why we would ask you to create this outside of a content area, a non-academic backward plan? Okay.
Transferability, maybe?
Good, something you're all familiar with, right? So maybe we have a bunch of different content area experts, so something you're all familiar with. Why else would it be important to do it outside of an academic area? Gina.
Components, not content.
Focusing on the components, not the content. We're looking for structure, right? Do you know the structure? Can you do the alignment piece? So by non-academic, you can choose to pick a sport to design a backward plan for. You could do, I don't know, how to make Thanksgiving dinner as a backward plan. You could do how to ride a bike, how to make a grilled cheese sandwich. You can pick any sort of non-academic activity that your group is going to focus on. What we want you to do with that is on that big sticky, we want you to create your stage 1, so at least one enduring understanding, 2 essential questions that align to that enduring understanding, 2 world-class outcomes that include the 4 C's. So your outcome cannot be participant will create a grilled cheese, or participant will make a grilled cheese sandwich, right? It has to include a 4 C's in there somewhere, one of the 4 C's. We're gonna then have you guys post the sticky on a wall when you're finished. And again, because we're running a little short on time, we're gonna start 10 minutes here, so if you don't get done before lunch, that's okay. We'll come back and start with this piece right when we return from lunch. So we're gonna go ahead and start our work. Remember, if you're in a bigger table, you wanna divide up maximum of 5 people per group, and we're gonna work on that part of stage 1. So one more time, backward plan, stage 1, for your non-academic activity. You need 1 enduring understanding. If you have more, that's okay. 2 essential questions, and 2 world-class outcomes that use the 4 C's. Okay? When you guys, we'll turn the music on. When you hear the music stop, that's your signal that it's lunchtime. And we are starting up again at 12:15? 12:15. So we have 45 minutes for lunch. If you have questions about places to grab lunch, if you need to do that, those of us who are up front have been here a couple times. We can direct you to some places that are close. Okay, questions before we start? All right then, we will be floating around helping with any questions, answering anything you guys may need help with. Okay.